Hello, everyone. My name is Fabio Brizzi. I'm the Chief Editor of Nature Nanotechnology, and I'd like to welcome you to this event of the series Nature Nano Talks. This is a series of events that we started organizing not too long ago, and with the idea of sharing with and engaging our community in some of the topics that we are really interested in. And so today we're talking about nanocatalysts, and particularly nanocatalysts for industrial applications. And I have with me Wenji Sun, who is our senior editor based in Shanghai, and I'm going to give her the word to introduce our panelists.
We invited two panelists from industry, Kendra Kuhl from Australia and Kensaku Kodama from Toyota Central R&D Lab. Unfortunately, Kodama is still trying to connect to us. We will wait for him and go on continuously until he joins us. And we also have two researchers from academia, Nanfeng Zheng from Xiamen University and Javier Pérez-Ramirez from ETH. And we want to have a conversation discussing about the challenges of applying the state-of-the-art nanocatalysts in industry and the strategies to overcome this. We all know catalysis is a very interesting topic with lots of challenges, both from the fundamental side and from the industrial side. It's a topic that's very application-oriented, and there are so many emerging catalytic materials with promising performance. But we often heard from researchers, especially the researchers in industry, saying some are far away from being industrial applicable. And that's why we have such a conversation, and we want to discuss about what's the specific challenges we have met in the commercialization and how can we solve that. First, we want to ask Kendra and Kensaku, hopefully Kensaku can join us in 5 minutes, to share with us the challenges they have met in the commercialization of the catalyst in their specific system. In Kendra's case, it's a CO2 electrolyzer. Please go ahead, Kendra.
Great, thank you. So my name is Kendra. I'm the CTO and co-founder at Opus 12, where we're building CO2 electrolyzers. And I'm excited to tell you guys today how we're using nanoparticle catalysts and some of the challenges that we've encountered. Can you go to the next slide? Our core business is building reactors, or more specifically electrolyzers, that take just 3 inputs, CO2, water, and electricity, and output 2 streams, one of oxygen and one containing a carbon-based fuel or chemical. That's a drop-in component for today's compounds that come from fossil resources. So if you can go to the next slide. So the heart of that device is the CO2 electrolysis cell shown on the left. So in a real system, there would be many of these cells stacked on top of each other. But in each single cell, we're feeding water to an anode catalyst, and there that water is oxidized to make oxygen, which releases protons and electrons. The electrons travel through the electrical circuit to the cathode catalyst layer, and the protons travel through the polymer electrolyte membrane, also to the cathode catalyst layer, where they combine with carbon dioxide to make a reduced carbon-based compound. So what I've shown here is carbon monoxide. That's our first target compound at Opus 12, but we're also doing work on developing more reduced compounds, methane, ethylene, and ethanol. So that anode catalyst layer and the polymer electrolyte membrane are exactly the same as what you would find in today's commercial water electrolyzers. So it's really that cathode catalyst layer where the CO2 conversion happens that's our core innovation. So in the middle here, you can see a picture of an MEA with the black cathode catalyst layer on it and a little cartoon of what's contained in that layer. So we have the gray circles, those are our metal nanoparticle catalysts, supported on carbon and surrounded by the light yellow, which is polymer electrolyte binder and other additives. So at those metal nanoparticle catalysts, the CO2 is being reduced into our desired compound, so carbon monoxide in this case. We take that membrane electrode assembly in order to do CO2 electrolysis and put it into some hardware. So what's shown on the right is just some test cell hardware, but there's also commercial hardware where we're stacking many of these MEAs on top of each other. So you can go to the next slide. So I think there's many challenges in working with nanoparticle catalysts. So this is definitely a non-exhaustive list, but a few, I think, of the biggest challenges that we found at Opus 12. One, I think many people would agree with, is synthetic scale. We need grams of material just for initial performance assessment of new materials. And the reason for that is that there's many different fabrication parameters that go into making that cathode catalyst layer. And there's many different formulations for that layer. And so in order to make sure that we're actually measuring that catalyst in kind of its ideal conditions, we need to do a little bit of optimization of the fabrication and the formulation. And for that, we need to make multiple samples, and we need quite a bit of material compared to what some of the nanoparticles and the synthetic scales are today in literature. Another challenge for us, I think really exciting, is that there's a lot of literature and also things that we're doing in our own lab showing that shape-controlled nanocatalyst particles are a really promising way to control which products we make. So the picture on the right shows some cubic catalysts, and those are found to be very effective for favoring ethylene or multi-carbon product formation. There's many examples of synthesizing those without a carbon support, and not very many examples that we're aware of synthesizing these kinds of shape-controlled particles already supported on carbon. We can work with things that aren't supported on carbon, but we prefer that we'd have the option of supporting something on carbon. And it isn't so simple to just take this material and mix it with some carbon. When we do that, we don't tend to get a very good interface or strong connection between the nanoparticles and the carbon, which makes that catalyst layer not work very well. It's also difficult in some cases to get a very even coverage of the carbon. We want the metal nanoparticles to evenly coat the carbon, not have large areas of uncovered carbon. And so being able to do that is also challenging. The third thing for us is we feel very fortunate to have access to some of these advanced characterization tools that are out there now for nanoparticles through a user access to the Molecular Foundry at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and through collaborations with researchers. You can see in the picture here in the bottom right, a STEM EDS image of an electrocatalyst that's used in this type of MEA. And you can see it shows very clearly the distribution of the metal nanoparticles and also the polymer electrolyte within that layer, which is the green. We really value these types of images, but they're still very hard to collect. It takes a long time to prepare the sample and then a long time to actually collect these images. And so it's difficult at this point to use these types of images for everyday QC and process development. And so we'd love to have kind of more access and easier to use methods to get the same kind of information. So yeah, these are a few of the challenges that we have, and there's many more, and I'm excited to be talking with you all today both about these and kind of how to address them. So thank you.
Thanks, Kendra. Now Kensaku is here. Kensaku, can you please also share with us the challenges that you have met in the commercialization of the state-of-the-art catalyst in your system, the PEM fuel cell?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm researching for fuel cell vehicles and relatively close to fundamental researches compared to Toyota engineers, but always have to consider the applicability of the research outcomes. So today, hope to provide some useful comment from industrial side. So here I'm showing the example of the nanocatalyst for oxygen reduction reaction, ORR, in the cathode fuel cells. So this slide shows the schematics of the configuration of fuel cells and microstructures of the electrode and the interface between the catalyst surface and ionomer. Ionomer is used in the electrode for fuel cells for good conduction of protons. One of the reactant for ORR. The performance of the catalyst is determined by various factors, including the intrinsic activity of the catalyst itself and the interfacial properties between the catalyst surface and ionomer, the latter of which also affect the mass transport of oxygen molecules to the catalyst surfaces, and therefore the power density of the device. So please go to the next slide. So requirement for high power densities in automobile applications where the size of stack is limited from the viewpoint of a space makes the development of ORR catalysts more challenging. So in laboratories, many researchers developed nanocatalysts with surprisingly high activities, but I'm not going to the details of the technical background, but it's known that not only the activity per the catalyst amount, I mean the platinum mass, but also the surface area of the catalyst per platinum mass is needed for improving the durability, the power density. So the requirement for high surface area poses issue of durability, leading to the trade-offs between the activity, durability, and power density, as shown by the left, the green surface in the left figure. So for overcoming the technical issues, some new approaches is necessary, but we consider that this is possible. One example is site-selective surface modifications of the catalyst surface with foreign stable materials, as shown by the right figure. So, but the controlling the surface structure in atomic scale poses the issue, another issue of the mass production, probably between the precise control of nanostructure and the cost for production. And this is a problem because if we cannot find a scalable synthesizing method, engineers in the field may regard the concept even useless one. So, and this can happen sometimes because in production phase, there may not be sufficient time for developing a new synthesizing method for a state-of-the-art catalyst. So even if the concept itself is very reasonable and has a great potential to overcome the first trade-off issue, I mean the improving the durability without sacrificing the performances. So we have to find some solutions to realize the nanocatalyst proposed from the ideal concept. So this is from my side.
Thanks a lot, Kensaku. That's very useful. I wish we can directly discuss. Yeah, I wish like our experts from academia can propose some solutions to address your issues. And we noticed that Nanfeng and Javier has lots of nice work on like fundamental understanding of nanocatalysts, which helps the rational design of the catalyst to achieve the industrial relevant performance. And Nanfeng and Javier will next give us some examples of how the precise nanoscale, sub-nanoscale engineering probably help, maybe like can be used for your systems. Please, okay. Nanfeng.
Okay, thank you. Kendra and Kensaku have shared with us the great challenges of nanocatalyst for application in CO2 electrolyzer as well as PEN fuel cells. From their introduction, I think we all already have several keywords in our mind already, right? For those applications, one is like activity, the other one is durability. I think Kendra mentioned the selectivity a little bit, but I would like to consider selectivity is also associated with durability, as I would like to mention later. So these three are actually really important factors determining whether a nanocatalyst can find practical application. Although these applications usually take place in really macroscopic scale, right? But actually, the reaction on nanocatalyst, they only happen in rather small scales, typically in the nanoscale of sub-nanometer, because most of the small molecule has the size in these regions. So I think in order to really optimize the catalytic performance of nanocatalyst, we need to understand the catalytic process at a molecular level. For example, the selectivity is really important in CO2 reduction. I think also in fuel cell, if we produce hydrogen peroxide, we etch out our carbon support, right? So, and this selectivity issue is even more important in fine chemical industries because poor selectivities often result in the production of poisonous waste and significantly increase the cost for raw materials. So without molecular understanding, I think the only way we can do is really to know what will work the best is try and error. Okay, we try and keep trying. Yeah, as we can see actually in these slides in the middle part, this is the typical TM image of supported metals nanocatalyst. The size of this nanoparticle actually they are not really uniform, right? And beside the presence of nanoparticles, some single atom and even a cluster of several atoms, they are also present on the catalyst. So there are so many parameters they are interplaying together to determine the overall catalysis. So the main difficulty for us is to really deeply understand the catalytic mechanism on conventional supported metal nanocatalysts. It's because their structures capacitate. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so how can we tackle this challenge? Normally, we consider one really effective strategy is to prepare model catalyst with controllables and well-defined parameters. For example, size, morphology, exposure surface, and also metal support interface. And then we can use all these material as the model system to really understand how these parameters influence catalysis. Here, I would like to just give you one example. I think Kensaku already mentioned that if we have some modifies, organic modifiers on the surface, like ionomers on the surface, we might introduce some poison effect. But actually, after years of study, we realized that, for example, if we modify some noble metals catalyst with some organic modified like ethylene diamine, we found that we can introduce a significant electronic change on the metal surface. And this, we can move the surface into more electron rich. And with this electronic structure change, basically we can fine tune their selectivities towards the production of the intermediates, which is impossible by unmodified metal catalyst because their electronic structure has been totally changed. So which means that the size of this nanoparticle is not important. So with this understanding, basically the scale up of this catalyst is rather simple, right? We just modify any commercial available catalyst with this modify, with specific modify. Then basically we can get the desired selectivity. So I think this could be a really nice way to really develop the desirable catalyst that we want. But the issue is that how can we really get deep understanding at the molecular level? So for any work like this, we might take like several years, 10 years to really get deep understanding because we don't have the good characterization tool to really see how those molecules play in together on the surface, right? So that's the most difficult part. So we also really need the help from the new technology developments. So as researchers from academia, I always believe the mechanistic studies is a critical step for nanocatalyst development. But of course, many of our model catalysts that we generated might not be suitable for scalable production. The main reason for that is that in order to get those model catalysts, in many cases, we introduce a lot of like organics, surface capping agent, and use a large amount of organic solvent, which are not easily recyclable. So actually, we really need to work together with industry partner to really understand what kind of process is accessible by your part, right? So in that case, we have the general ideas in our minds. So what kind of system we should develop? So I think this is all about my side. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Nanfeng. Javier, do you want to present now?
Yes.
Please.
Absolutely. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. So I'd like to stress some of the exciting opportunities that nanoscale engineering offers for enhancing heterogeneous catalysts. And I think this is a very relevant image. So industrial catalysts are nanostructured from the start, but as Nanfeng has said, they frequently lack homogeneity. This is a metal-supported catalyst that evidences the presence of gold nanoparticles or gold clusters and gold single atoms. So this little mess hampers rational catalyst design. And since questions like what is doing what in the reaction, what is the optimal speciation of gold, what is the relative stability under reaction conditions, they are extremely hard to answer if you have a zoo of species in the catalyst. Therefore, precision synthesis is exactly the way to move forward using amenable methods to large-scale production. This is actually the cornerstone to make progress in the field, not nanostructuring, but precise nanostructuring. One recent example to emphasize this is the design of promoters for the indium oxide catalyzed hydrogenation of carbon dioxide to methanol. And so you can see pure indium oxide on the left is extremely selective to methanol, but exhibits limited activity due to impeded hydrogen activation. The addition of palladium invigorates this step, increasing the CO2 conversion, but in contrast, shifts the selectivity instead of producing methanol to CO due to the reverse water-gas shift reaction. So in order to combine the enhanced hydrogen activation that palladium brings, maintaining the selective character of indium, atomically dispersed palladium sites are required, which is achieved by single atoms or dimeric palladium species. As long as there is a little bit of clustering, leading to 3 or 4 palladium atom cluster, then the reverse water-gas shift kicks off and the main reaction product switches from methanol to carbon monoxide, which is what you don't want. In other words, the difference between an outstanding catalyst and a mediocre catalyst is just 1 palladium atom. This is the level of precision we are striving for today in heterogeneous catalyst design. 1 atom too much or 1 atom too little matter a lot. Staying with CO2 hydrogenation, the strong dependence of the reaction to the promoter nanostructure is illustrated in this slide. As I said, palladium clusters on the left on indium oxide boost the rate of methanol production. However, if you start playing with nickel as an alternative promoter, which is a very close neighbor in the periodic table to palladium, a totally different nanostructure is required to maximize the methanol productivity. And so what you need to make in this case is not clusters, but the formation of ultra-thin indium-nickel alloys on top of indium oxide. As long as you are not able to control the ultra-thin indium-nickel alloy catalyst, you will start, because you have either very thick alloy particles or even nickel particles, you'll start producing undesired products like carbon monoxide or even worse, methane. A well-defined atomically dispersed metal based catalysts, they bring exciting opportunities in traditional heterogeneous catalysts, but also beyond. So single atom heterogeneous catalyst, very low nuclearity catalyst, like what you see here, the palladium stabilized on 6-fold nitrogen cavities of carbon nitride exhibit much higher turnover frequencies for Suzuki couplings compared to commercially applicable palladium triphenyl phosphine. The potential replacement of homogeneous catalysts, but by well-defined heterogeneous analogs, achieving a similar level actually of molecular precision with a metal center surrounded by a stabilizing ligand, in this case the nitrogen sites in the solid scaffold, open thrilling avenues for nanocatalysts in the field of fine chemicals and pharmaceuticals. And so a remarkable feature of this system is actually the adaptative coordination of the palladium atom with the nitrogen, with the carbon nitride scaffold. And so you can see how the coordination number of palladium decreases, now is from 6 in the fresh material to 3 upon adsorption of the different components in the reaction, the bromomethane or the ester, and the atom enables adaptation in the cavity to minimize the energy path to catalyze the reaction effectively until the 2 phenyl rings are formed. And so a very important aspect here is how to make this single atom flexible enough to move in the cavity, but attached enough so it doesn't leave and leaches. So this is exactly this concept of adaptative coordination, which is very important. So 1 single atom instead of 10,000 atoms in a nanoparticle. Tuning that will be very important to move forward in nanocatalyst design. And so I'd like to end up with this slide that shows that the versatility and complexity of single atom heterogeneous catalyst is already pretty astonishing, even if you just have a single atom. And that is because the specific location in the solid host, in this case carbon, and the coordination environment determines the electronic properties of the single atom and therefore the reactivity in catalytic applications. So the snapshot on the right in this slide shows an in-depth speciation analysis of platinum single atoms on activated carbon and nitrogen doped carbon conducted to identify the key species that catalyze dehydrochlorination of acetylene, which is a key reaction in the manufacture of vinyl chloride. So the precise synthesis using scalable methods of platinum atoms with different degrees of chlorine ligands or differently functionalized carbon carriers has enabled recently to identify a stable system representing a promising alternative to the highly toxic mercuric chloride catalyst still used today. So a very key message here is that precision synthesis is important. Precision synthesis can only be confirmed with a very advanced characterization methods, not only of experimental nature, but also of theoretical nature, and then very relevant stability is important. And one of the key rules that I believe that one should apply in developing nanocatalysts is that try from day one to use scalable methods that you are aware of being used in larger scale. This is what I wanted to say, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks a lot, Javier. So we can say like Nanfeng and Javier's system, your system are very defined, well-defined, right? But and then like for large-scale industrial applications, actually for your reactions, the reactions that you worked on, actually that atomically and nanoscale defined systems actually can be scaled up. But then like for Kendra and Kensaku, they met some issues like how to maintain the fancy geometries on their carbon spots, for instance. Do you have any suggestions like to them, to Kendra and Kensaku, like how to maintain this geometry on the spots? And also like you mentioned the characterization, the precise characterization is very important, but for the startup company, probably it's very hard to have this kind of characterizations all the time, right?
Yeah, certainly characterization is the rate determining step in any of these developments. And without interrogating the catalyst structure, I don't have any magic formula to say, okay, that by synthesis, you know already blindly that you have what you call a fancy structure. I will not call it fancy, I will call it defined. And I think that defined is the right word. I believe in some of the examples that I have shown you, they are industrially applied at the moment through collaboration with industry, and they have these fancy structures, and these fancy structures are in pilot reactors being tested, because I think one of the key, one of the key aspects in academic research in catalysis is try to use, as I said before, scalable methods from the start. Don't try to just develop very model systems and then when they show some potential, try to move to pilot scaling where you have to change the solvent, the precursor, etc., etc. The level of impurities in carbon support, for example, and then get really disappointed by the fact that you can never reproduce what you got in the lab. So start with reality from the beginning. But yes, having access to characterization methods, I'm afraid, is key to guide industrial catalyst.
Nanfeng, do you have something else to add?
Yes, I think fancy morphology sometimes is rather difficult to make. Yeah, so the importance is the important thing is really to find a strategy. And actually for some metal like copper is really robust, right? So particularly under high potentials or reduction potential, actually so they can easily migrate those copper atoms. So one strategy to really stabilize those fancy structure might be use some kosher structure. If you can put some metal which is not so mobile as the core, and with the copper on the surface. This might be another one strategy. Another strategy, of course, is user support. Right, we can use the support to immobilize to prevent the sintering of the copper. So I think for copper is really a change issue, because we have done a lot of work on that. So another issue is that you can quite try to encapsulate coppers with some porous architecture. This also help to prevent the structure change of the coppers. But for electrolysis reduction application, the shells need to be, the porous shell need to be highly electron conductive, right? That's the issue. So carbons could be a good choice. Of course, some carbides might be good choice. So I think we should be able to find some solution. But definitely, not any solution is the only solution, right?
Yeah, that's true. Another question that I want to ask is more about the durability and also the cost. For example, like you two guys developed some like very well defined catalysts for industrial applications, and now they are being used. And how about like the cost, and are they durable?
Yes,
Yeah,
I may say something. So the durability is also important, and now it's well recognized by also academia, but still the analytical works for durability are a little bit behind those for the activity or selectivity, and especially the theory for degradation dynamics has not well been established. So that's important. And as Javier said, the characterization of the catalytic surfaces and the thorough investigation of the degradation mechanisms is very important for applying some new methods as like surface modification. So we need to know why such a method improves the activity, and engineers considered, okay, so in this may be related to the mass production. So as I said, if we cannot find a good way of mass production of the newly developed, for example, surface modified catalyst in some limited time, so we may give up such a ideal concept. But if we know the real mechanisms, or actually we can prove that the concept is really good, we can continue to develop the synthesizing methods in the long term. So that's important to for the analytical works.
Yeah, I think if I fully agree with Kensaku, I think academia is still quite undeveloped in the long-term evaluation of catalysts, and you can imagine that typically for a bulk process, a catalyst will go to large-scale production upon successful completion of a 10,000-hour laboratory test, for example. So which academic group has one reactor for 10,000 hours on a stream, right? That's very rare. We typically, in my lab, we typically try to have a stability test. Some of these catalysts that I've shown you have been on a stream for 500 hours because there was an extremely high interest from industry. Therefore, you have the motivation to do it. However, they are rare. They are rare, and very important is to see that the dynamics of a catalyst do not happen only after 10 or 15 hours. That in many papers are reported as okay, this is really a stabilized catalyst, so that's really an early stage catalyst. So one approach that has been used for many decades, I would say, is accelerated degradation test, where you basically stress the catalyst under basically harsh condition within the reaction. This could be a way forward, but I don't think it's the most accurate way, because probably it's not necessary to have such harsh condition. So without having an overall solution, I believe that academia has to take more kind of responsibility, if you like, on durability. And I think there the cooperation with industry can be of essential value, because you guys have the reactors that can operate overnight, over the weekend, and you have probably some safety allowances that we don't have for a particular chemistry. So I think there the comparison in getting representative samples from you to characterize in depth with all the 15 or 20 techniques that we have and that we use quite often in catalysis will be the way forward. So tighter collaboration, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, because in our academias, we normally don't use a very long time for a durability test. Maybe for the degradation mechanism at different time periods, they might be different. Maybe at the beginning is because of the sintering of the particle, but at the middle part is like because of the supposed degradation. So we really need to have full understanding of those degradation mechanism. So only with that we can really provide most solutions to really enhance the durability. I totally agree. Yeah.
Thanks both. I think this is a good point that there is a huge gap between lab scale and industrial scale. So therefore, I also want to ask Kendra and Kensaku. So there are so many catalytic materials that exhibits promising activity, selectivity, durability towards the reaction that you are working on. But does it mean they are the nice candidates to enter the pilot studies? Certainly not, right? But then how do you decide which materials that you want to test in pilot studies? Do you only take the materials that has been tested in the really larger lab scale, like maybe accelerated studies, degradation studies, or something like that?
Yeah.
You want to comment on that?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes. We have some method to evaluating the proposed catalysts from all over the world. So, and with some something, so or evaluate the catalysts in one criteria. So and then some catalysts show some poor activity durability that is very different to the results in the paper. So that maybe there's some differences between the measurement conditions in the laboratory and some industrial phases. So, but some materials show some good results, and the next step is that materials can be produced in low cost or something. So there are several stages to evaluate the material.
Nice, thanks. Kendra, do you have something else to say?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're constantly looking for new materials to try. There are a lot of options out there. So when we think about what to look at, I think one is there's a lot of different CO2 electrolyzer architectures being used in academia. And so how well, catalyst activity or performance in the reactor being used could be translated to our device is one thing we look at. And then how easy it would be to integrate that catalyst into our device. There's a lot of studies on extended surfaces, and maybe they are nanostructured, but it would be hard to take a solid surface, like for instance, and put it into our device. Maybe we can mimic that somehow, and we try to do that if we can. But I think it's, yeah, that's kind of how close it is to what we're doing, and then how easily we can get enough of the material, because sometimes, you know, if we only have a little bit of material to work with, it's pretty hard to really say that we found the right conditions to show how well it worked. As far as cost, I don't think we worry about that very much at this point. And I don't think we worry about it being available at super large scale. If it's available at a large enough scale for us to like test it and find that it works, you know, we would be happy to then do the work to scale it up internally at Opus 12. But, you know, we have to have that first hit to show that it's promising enough to do that with, to take that step.
Thanks a lot. This is helpful.
May I comment? So I think that another argument I like to put on the table is that we often talk about mass production, and mass production means, you know, like we have to produce tons and so on. But I think there is the main issue in catalyst scale up is not actually going from 1 kilo to 1,000 kilos. Is actually to understand what happens when you put the additives on the catalyst manufacturing to produce this ton, and that it relates to binders, that relates to plastifiers, that relates to peptizers, etc. So these kind of additives change the structure of the catalyst very often, and that leads to you know, observing performance that was not what you saw in the lab, or a faster degradation method because of migration of the active site from the catalyst to the additive, etc. And I think academia there could also play a role in trying to understand interaction between catalyst and additives already at an early stage, without the need of really getting into mass production. So one could do with very intense, I don't know, mechanochemical activation, one could do a proper kind of interaction between active phases and additives to see what's going on. So I think that's another point where academia can contribute with the understanding of molecular level understanding of catalyst. And another thing I wanted to raise is that the applications that Kendra and Kensaku have shown do not only depend on having a very nice catalyst, but a very nice reactor. And so I think mass transfer in these applications sometimes dominates basically over the quality of the catalyst. So the engineering there is not only on the active side, but also on the porous structure. And so it's way more complex. I think it's one level higher in complexity.
Yeah, and I would say when you guys are talking about like accelerated testing, I think like it's for CO2 electrolysis, we don't know the mechanism, so it's difficult to develop that. But we find that not only the catalyst that can lead to performance decay, and the accelerated testing can hit other parts of the device as well. So it's hard to know what you're really testing in some of those cases.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have like certain like criteria, right? So both the industry and academics, they can set up a certain protocols for this durability test. But in academia, looks like for all the reactors, different labs have different reactors, different geometry, different structures, which is rather difficult to really evaluate their rare activity and also durability. So this is a big problem. So if there's a really tight connections between academia and industry, I think this will help really a lot to the development of this field. Yeah.
So standardization, I think standardization is the key to move. To make standard protocols, you know, that are comparable, because that not only relates to evaluation of catalysts, but also regarding synthesis of catalysts. So yeah.
Yeah, we need another checklist, Fabio. Nature needs another checklist. So there is something else that I want to ask on behalf of our junior researchers, for example, from academia. So we know that Nanfeng and Javier are very established. You are often approached by industrial people, right? But for the junior researchers, do you have any advice for them to translate their catalysts if they have already got some catalysts with a very promising performance? But maybe they haven't got a chance to be approached by the industrial researchers.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please.
So, so I would say try to approach industry. That's first thing. Try to be flexible. Try to listen to what industry needs. That's very important. Flexibility. Sometimes compromising other things that you might have in mind in the beginning, like 100% freedom of doing whatever you like with your data. And I think it's also very important to have, if you really have a technology that you believe on, patent it. Don't publish it. Patent it.
No. You first patent it and then submit it to us.
So exactly, you first patent it, and you generate your portfolio of patents, and then you are ready to talk to industry or to do it on your own if you believe you can have a spin-off. So I think that the most important is really to try to be flexible, because the industrial needs are very different to the needs of a tenure committee to grant you a tenure, because that will relate to mostly to publications. I think tenure committees do not appreciate a lot yet if you have patents or if you have translated technology, most of the times because you cannot really disclose what technologies you have translated, because you have confidentiality agreements with the company preventing you to say how good you are. And so yeah, I think that's a complicated business.
Yeah, actually, so when I started my own independent careers, I also try to approach like chemical industry. I realized that just a waste of time. The main reason for that is that it's because like scale up synthesis. I need to spend a lot of time and efforts and also money, right? But I don't have enough money. I don't have big team. So I think it's rather easy for me just to stick on academic, but with the expanding of the group size, I realized that, oh, we can do something better for the larger scale synthesis. So basically, right now in my group, like I have my PhD student working on fundamental, and master student they can working on scale up technique development. So I think there's a balance. So I think depend on your funding situation, also so the size of your research group. So
yeah, I think one issue, if I can say this is that what industry and academia have to realize when working together is that it is a true collaboration. And industry often goes is the first meeting you have is ownership or NDAs. So they scare you. They scare you as a young faculty to work with them, because you believe your soul does not belong to you anymore. And so it has to be a win-win situation. And so this comes from both sides. The flexibility should come from both sides. So very often, I was telling before about procedures for catalyst testing that have to be uniform in academia and in industry. Well, the truth is that very often industry does not share with you their protocols, even if you have a contract with them. So how to demand more from academia if you don't open a little bit more your hand? So you see, it's a two-body problem, I would say.
that's true. Yeah.
You have something to say, Kensaku?
Yes. So now the industrial side is changing. I hope so.
Oh, great.
Yes, in at least in fuel cell researches. So now we start to communicate each other and disclose real technical issues for sharing. So what's the problem? And so because in the case of fuel cells, it's more important for us to whether the hydrogen economy really counts or not, rather than just selling the fuel cell vehicles in the short term. So now in the industrial side, we need to publish more papers as well as patent.
Oh.
So, and after that, we can communicate on the basis of the published topics. So then, yeah, we may need still some contract with the academia.
Of course.
Yeah, and also publication is a nice way to share, like really for you, like to like, for example, to decide whom you want to approach, right? To collaborate with.
Yeah.
And also it's a kind of like to attract a notice from both sides, both academia and the industry.
Yeah, sometimes the engineers in industry fear about what degree we can disclose the information in industry, but so that's why we need to learn to what degree the information technology information has been disclosed in the world.
Yeah, that's
Kendra,
nice.
did you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we also kind of have our roots in academia, and while we can't really publish on our kind of core commercial product, we do like getting publications, and I think that's something that comes out of collaborating with people in academia is, they can kind of, we can contribute, but they can also push forward the publication process. So that's been really nice for us. One of the benefits, I think.
Nice to know. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. Fabio, do you have something else to say?
Not really, apart from really thanking everybody for this nice exchange. I think it was a very interesting debate and quite animated as well. And I think we are approaching the end, so I'd like to thank everybody also for attending. And we'll see you next time, hopefully. But thanks a lot for this discussion, and I'm hoping that, to be honest, that this could also lead to something. You never know.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. I really learned a lot. Hope you also get some take-home message. Thanks.
Thank you very much for organizing.
Bye.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add for the attendees that if you want to access the recording, this will be available in the next few days. I will post it on our Twitter account, and I will post it on our website as well. So, and if anybody has any question, you can send it to me. I think you'll have from your registration page, you will have my contact. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice time. Bye bye.